Middlesex University, the IBMS, and the Natural Sciences Academic Society. My name is Zishan Ahmed. I'm the President of the Natural Sciences Society, and this is part of my committee. And we're students on the third year Biomedical Science undergraduate. And the Natural Sciences Society was started up last year by ourselves and former undergraduate students to sort of fill the void that we had. We didn't really feel engaged with our course. We felt we were lacking employment opportunities, and we didn't really have a good understanding of what was available to us after we graduate. So what we decided to do was contact a few organisations, that being the IBMS, and we started speaking to them about holding a Careers Expo. And this is what you have in front of you guys today. So in the quad, you've probably seen exhibitors. So we have academic institutions, biotech companies, and the affiliated organisations with the IBMS. Do go over to them after the talks, register with the IBMS and join our society. So today, what we are going to have is a talk by key speakers in the field of research, academic research, industry, as well as people from the IBMS, so who deal with laboratory-based biomedical science roles. Now, general housekeeping. We have no planned fire drill today, so in case the fire alarm does go off, then run for your lives in an orderly fashion. You go outside the door downstairs and out to the left. That's the meeting point. I'm not going to ask you to switch off your phones because you guys might want to take selfies, take pictures and post them online. But if you could actually switch off the flash, put them on silent and take them off the desk so the speakers aren't distracted, that would be really good. Now, we have four lovely speakers today, as I mentioned, and they will go on after each other in succession. First two speakers will talk, and then we'll have a short break. Their talks will range from 15 to 20 minutes, after which you can ask questions. Please do so. So prepare your questions during the talk so you don't forget them. And once it's done, ask your questions, fire away, just so that we can stick to time. Now, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the first speaker. So we have Sarah May, who is the Deputy Chief Executive of the Institute of Biomedical Science, who's sitting on the far right, my right, your left of the table. She became a member of the senior executive staff at the Institute in 2002 as the head of strategy, and thereafter she was promoted to a current role in 2007. Now, Sarah has been closely involved in the development of the Institute's qualifications, particularly those for individuals undertaking or expert biomedical scientist roles. She's delivered many lectures and training sessions to biomedical scientists on this subject. She has been closely involved in supporting the development of Institute's responses to Modernising Scientific Careers projects. Sarah sits on the Science Council's Registration Authority and is now leading on the review and development of the Institute's policies in responses to the Francis report. Now, if you don't know what I've just said, you feel free to ask her about these things. Prior to joining the management team at the IBMS, Sarah was a national member of the Institute's council, and she gained extensive experience in pathology laboratories as the laboratory manager in cellular pathology in Farnborough Hospital, which is in Kent. And previously the laboratory manager in cytology at the Royal Free Hospital as well, which is a bit more local to us. She was specialist advisor in cytology for the IBMS and served as a laboratory lead on the London region of cervical cytology quality assurance team for 5 years. And that was quite a lengthy introduction, but basically to sum it up, she will be speaking about career paths in biomedical science and opportunities available to biomedical science undergraduates. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming along today. I'm so pleased that there are so many people interested in finding out some of your career options in biomedical science. I'm going to talk to you for about 20 minutes, and I'm going to focus primarily on careers in the NHS for biomedical scientists and associated healthcare science professions. We've got time for a few questions at the end. If you want to come and talk to us, or any of us, in more detail, we'll be around at 4 o'clock, so if you don't feel like asking public questions, come and find us afterwards and we'll see if we can help you out. Okay, career in biomedical science, and of course nothing happens when I click the little doodle. There we go. I think the first thing is, if you're looking for a career in biomedical science, be proud of yourself, because biomedical science is a profession. I'm now from the Institute. I used to be a biomedical scientist in pathology. I now work for the Institute, and that's our professional body, and I know some of you may be student members. If you're not, go and talk to Sarah, 'cause it's a really good organisation to be a member of. You'll get a lot of information about careers, career options, all sorts of helpful stuff there. But what we do is we set the standards of training for biomedical scientists. We accredit degrees, so if you're on an accredited degree, it's very important. It means that your degree has met a quality kite mark. In particular, if you want to go and become registered with the Health and Care Professions Council, it must be accredited. Wendy will talk to you later about how to become registered as a biomedical scientist. We've got strong links with employers and universities, which is why we're here today, why we've been working with Middlesex, and we work with a number of universities. We approve laboratories for training, so if you're going to do your training in an approved laboratory, you'll know that they've met the standards and you're going to be supported and given a good structured training. We provide professional qualifications, because if you are a professional person, you'll want to progress your career, and your professional body is the organisation that will complement the academic courses taught in universities, but we will provide you with a whole suite of professional qualifications for you to take. And we work with other professional organisations, so we're part of a very big network. Biomedical science is brilliant if you do choose this. It's one of the broadest areas of modern science. 20 years ago, it wasn't a well-known term. Now it's very, very familiar, and it is a good place to put yourself. It underpins much of modern medicine. And biomedical scientists, although you don't, as a member of the public, hear about them, they are a very large part of the wider biomedical science workforce. You're very key people if you're a biomedical scientist. And every single person in this room will have used the services of a biomedical scientist at some time in their life. Even if it's when you were first born as a baby, your blood sample will have been analysed by a biomedical scientist. Essentially, that's what we do. We analyse the samples, and without them, diagnosis and treatment would be far less effective. In the UK, biomedical scientists are a very key part of the NHS, healthcare science workforce. So if you're looking at language and words to look for, if you're looking for a career in healthcare science, biomedical science is the major part of it. Biomedical scientists make up about 40% of the whole healthcare science workforce, so we're a large body of people. We're a regulated profession, and that's incredibly important. We're regulated by the Health and Care Professions Council. Our degrees, and we work with medical pathologists and laboratory support workers. So as a biomedical scientist, you'd be the largest part of the laboratory workforce. And you do a whole range of things. You're not just in rubber gloves and white coats undertaking lab tests. Biomedical scientists have a lot of transferable skills. So if later on in your career you want to go somewhere else and do something different, you will have gained training qualities and skills. You'll know about quality, you'll know about management, you'll know about human resources, you'll know about equipment, and you'll know about science. So you're a very marketable commodity, not just with your degree, but with your experience. You probably all know this, and we'll just whistle through this bit, but broadly, biomedical science breaks down into 4 key areas. And if you're thinking about a career, one word of advice. This talk is 1 year old. I didn't say this a year ago, but now I would say look very carefully at genetics and molecular biology or molecular pathology. That is the most growing area, I think, of the broad field of biomedical science. With the 100,000 Genome Project and with the creation of Genomics England, your future in biomedical science will, to some degree or another, always contain molecular pathology, but look at those two areas. I think they will be very important, or increasingly important. It is not to say there's not a bundle of fun in the others. Infection science, In a microbiology lab, obviously you're looking at microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, and parasites. Depends on your laboratory whether you see the full range of those. Things like parasitology and mycology are far more specialist. You might be in a specialist centre. Virology obviously is the study of disease and viruses, and looking at the effects of vaccines. We also could put in a picture. Increasingly, microbiology is becoming more and more automated, but obviously there is still manual plating. In terms of your working conditions, microbiology does provide an out-of-hours service, but it's not a fully 24-hour service like other disciplines are. So if you're thinking about your work-life balance, think about that in the laboratory as well, because pathology and hospitals are becoming increasingly 24/7 working, but there is a greater or lesser need depending on the discipline you choose. Clin Chem, it's body fluids essentially. This is one of the biggest departments in pathology. It operates totally on a 24/7 service. It's very highly automated. Very often it's shared technology with haematology, hence the title Blood Sciences. Hormones, disease, diabetes, cancer, toxicology. There's mainstream biochemistry and a lot of highly specialist areas. And if you're in a big teaching hospital, your biochemistry department will be absolutely massive. So a lot of the equipment's like massive train sets now, huge analyzers. So if automation doesn't float your boat, don't think about biochemistry, especially 24/7 working. Transfusion science, again, it's very highly automated. This is a very exacting one. It's the quickest way to kill somebody in pathology if you get it wrong in transfusion. Again, obviously 24/7 service in transfusion. Haematology, there's also a morphological element here, which is quite a good combination of the highly technological and looking actually at your cells, in particular leukemias. Again, haematology, very much a 24/7 service, increasingly becoming twinned with biochemistry. And again, there's just some images for you to look at of malignant cells, leukemias you're looking at there. Immunology, a far more specialist area of biomedical science. They tend to be smaller laboratories and particularly associated with many of the transplant centres, looking at allergies, tumour growth, tissue grafts. In particular, they're very important in HIV work and autoimmune conditions and allergies. And what I've shown you there is a lady with lupus. You can see the butterfly rash across her nose and her cheeks. And then there's tissue samples there in single cells with a fluorescent conjugated antibody to actually show the antibody response. Got a lot of feedback. Cell science is a much more, I would say, technological rather than, much more manual rather than technological science. Of all the disciplines, this is very, very hands-on. It's not a 24/7 service. Very rarely do you provide an out-of-hours service in cellular pathology, and it's basically a microscopical study of tissues and tissue samples, and its sister department, cytology, is the study of individual cells. I don't want to dwell on cytology too much now because the cervical screening program, which was the bedrock of cytology, is now largely going on to, it will go on to DNA probes and often be done in virology. So cytology training opportunities are far smaller now, but histology is one of the main departments in pathology. If you like putting on your rubber gloves and actually manually doing things, histology is the one for you. It's the preparation of gross tissue, it's dissection, it's preparation, cutting thin sections, and ending up with samples like that, looking at under a microscope. There's the option of quite a lot of microscopy as well. So that was a whistle-stop tour of pathology, but how do you actually become a biomedical scientist? And the short answer is the most direct route is an institute-accredited degree in biomedical science or in healthcare science. There are 2 degree options for you, but so long as they're accredited by the institute, they will both enable you to apply to become HCPC registered, and that's vitally important. When laboratories are selecting people, they will favour those with an institute-accredited degree because it's the fastest route to get you registered. If, though, you don't have an accredited degree, all is not lost. but you will require individual assessment of what you have studied, and the Institute is the organisation that does this. And the Institute will identify the shortfall between your non-accredited degree and an accredited degree, and they'll recommend undergraduate top-up modules, so I'm afraid it's more undergraduate study, in order to turn you into a biomedical scientist. You need a training position in an approved laboratory, and when you're looking for jobs, sometimes it'll be referred to as a trainee healthcare science practitioner or a biomedical scientist, but they're the same thing. Healthcare science practitioner in biomedical science, a trainee biomedical scientist. Just need to check. They will lead you to HCPC registration. Career progression. And this is where you can really start to motor once you've got your registration. As a biomedical scientist, you're a pluripotent stem cell, for want of better words. At your point of registration, you are qualified and experienced to go into any of the biomedical science disciplines. After registration, you start to consolidate and become specialist. And it normally takes about 2 years, and you can do the Institute Specialist Diploma, which doesn't require attending a course. It's in-house training, but you actually get the recognition for it. You follow a portfolio, and there's an oral exam at the end of it, and a specialist diploma is usually required before you can get a Band 6 post in the NHS. So it's very worthwhile joining the Institute. That's your first step of progressing up a career ladder. For those who work in departments where there's areas of expertise required, we do diplomas of expert practice. A lot of these are in tissue dissection, some in mycology, electron microscopy, non-gynae cytology, and those are additional things you can put into your professional portfolio. Very important to think about now in this economic climate is how you acquire a master's level qualification, which is a mandatory requirement for a Band 7 post. And there's the obvious route to a master's degree, and there's the alternative route of the Institute's Higher Specialist Diploma, which is a professional qualification. There's nothing to stop you doing both, but you do have a choice. And if you go into cytology and histology, and you're looking right at the top of biomedical sciences consultant level, we do advanced specialist diploma. So we provide a structure for people right the way from registration up to the top. I say those are our professional qualifications. They're complemented by academic ones of the master's degree. If you don't get the funding or you don't get the support to do a master's, there's the Higher Specialist Diploma. And for those who have the opportunity, obviously there are PhDs, professional doctorates, but they do tend to very much depend on what your employer requires. It's quite a commitment from them and the support they're prepared to give you. I put this in because a lot of people who want to be a biomedical scientist cannot get a training position. They're pretty much like gold dust at the moment, because you'll be aware the NHS is undergoing a massive reconfiguration in pathology, and it's put a tremendous squeeze upon jobs. We've seen a lot downgraded. What I would say is please don't give up and think that there's no future. Not wishing to be too blunt, but the population in biomedical scientists, a lot of them are over 55, so they can't stay there forever. Might as well look at it like that. If I said nobody's over 40, it would be pretty grim for you. But they are going to go. So there are opportunities, but it's quite worrying. We do see a brain drain, and we do need people coming in at the bottom and working their way up as well. So there most definitely is a future in pathology. But a first step in the door, it's often useful to take a job as a laboratory support worker. You'll be overqualified with a degree, but it'll give you very valuable experience. Tend to go in as a Band 2 or 3, maybe a 4. If I were you and you want experience, I would grab one of those. And it doesn't have to be in the discipline in which you want to work. Get some experience. The other option is clinical scientist. Now these are akin to biomedical scientists, but they register at master's level. They're regulated by the Health and Care Professions Council as well. Access into clinical scientist training is through the scientist training programme, and it's competitive entry, and there tend to be probably about 100, 150 in England-wide each year. You need a first or a good 2-1 honours degree to get onto that programme. They're a little bit like gold dust, but they do lead to HCPC registration. And you do end up with a slightly more clinical role than the biomedical scientists. Having said that, there aren't a lot of those jobs around. This is the one that everybody likes to know, and I think it's important because everybody's got to live. This gives you an indication of the salaries, and these are current salary scales, and come April you can add 1% onto that. But if you take a support worker role initially, before you can get a training post, you would probably go in at band 4, possibly even 3 or 2, but that's an indication. If you Google NHS pay agenda for change, you'll see the scales. Band 5 is for a qualified HCPC registered biomedical scientist. That shows where they go up to nearly 28,000. Bear in mind in London you get around £5,000 inner London waiting and slightly less if you're outside. Band 6, if you get your specialist diploma, you'll rise from nearly 26,000 to 34.5, and band 7s go from nearly 31,000 up to 40.5. And of course then there's band 8 A, B, C. So it is a very, it's quite a good career structure. It's competitive, but it's good. There are other career opportunities. You'll be aware that in pathology, a lot of them now are not pure NHS laboratories. They're looking at private companies that have been given the contracts for provision of pathology services. There are a number of very large ones in London. The terms and conditions are very similar to those of the NHS, so please don't discount that. That is something that is going to be increasingly prevalent. Veterinary laboratories, the transfusion service, university laboratories, and Ian will talk about universities. Helen will talk about the pharmaceutical industry. Teaching, and I've got accountancy. It's one of those really useless but quite funny little facts. A very large number of biomedical scientists go into accountancy. We're snapped up because we have good attention to detail and it's our transferable skills. So a biomedical science degree doesn't commit you to a scientific career. I always think it's the scientific equivalent of an English degree, and it'll take you all sorts of places. Further information, if you haven't made a note of it, jot down our website there, www.ibms.org. That is a mine of useful information to you. As I say, please talk to Sarah if you want to be a student member of the Institute. Ah, the advertising's there, £10 a year. It'll be the best £10 you'll ever spend. I appreciate that was a very swift whistle stop through biomedical science careers. We have got 5 minutes for questions, but if anyone wants to come and talk to me or any of the others afterwards, we'll be around at 4 o'clock. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Sarah? If you just put your hand up, I can bring the mic over to you.
You can have public humiliation as well.
Anybody? Okay. Sarah, I've got one question for you. With biomedical science courses, you get accredited and non-accredited.
Yeah.
Is it the same thing for master's programs? Are there accredited master's programs and non-accredited?
Yes, there are. I can shout into this. Yes, we have accredited and non-accredited ones, but whether you choose an accredited or non-accredited master's one will not affect your registration status. The accredited, Institute accredited master's degrees are ones that we have given a kite mark of quality to, but really it's horses for courses there. It might be a different course, it might be a new one in bioinformatics or something that we haven't yet accredited. It will not affect your career choices and options if you do a non-accredited master's, unlike it would at the undergraduate level.
Any other questions? Okay.
Just as we were going through the bands, I was just wondering how long does it usually take to go from band 5, 6, 7, etc. Like, how do I develop that?
Okay.
Like, how long does it take?
It's very variable. It does depend upon the environment in which you're in. You might need to think about changing jobs. You need to go where the opportunities are. Once you have got your registration, usually people are at band 5 for approximately 2 years. That's about the time it takes for you to become what I would say turn you into a specialist in whether it's in micro or chemistry or haematology. Once you're at band 6, you tend to be there a little bit longer because a band 7 usually has supervisory skills. You might be in charge of a section. Again, it depends upon opportunities, and it sounds a glib thing to say that you make your own opportunities, but I really do think you're lucky being, well, I presume most of you are from the London area. You've got a high concentration of hospitals here, and I would always recommend, once you feel you've gone as far as you can in a certain laboratory, think about moving. Unless you want to stay where you are, but to go up to a band 7, it's a bit how long is a piece of string, but probably in the region of 8 years maybe.
Thank you.
I don't think you're going to be fixed at 8 years. It might take longer, it might take less, but I would think you're looking at 8 for a 7.
Is there anyone else who has a question?
So I just wanted to ask about further studies. If you want to take up a master's, for example, I mean, how would you go about getting a funded master's?
Depends on your local trust. Training budgets in hospitals have been absolutely slashed, and that's one of the reasons that it's actually quite difficult. Some of them ask you to, they will fund part of it, and they might require you to fund the remainder, but it will depend on your local circumstances. But as I say, there's the option, the higher national diploma, higher specialist diploma, that is £400, isn't it? About £400 to sit. So that is a very, very cost-effective qualification. The only thing with that one is it's self-directed learning. It's not supported by a taught course. You need a good training officer, you need a good supportive department, and you need to be prepared to do a lot of reading around and study. But that is a level 7 qualification, master's level. It's not a master's equivalent, it's master's level.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there anyone else who has a question to ask? No? Okay. Moving on swiftly. Thank you very much, Sarah.